And we are live. How you doing, Mets fans, whoever you're a fan of? It's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest Metropolitan pregame segment here, as the Mets are bound to kick off a 6-game homestand, starting off against the Miami Marlins in hopes that the Mets do, in fact, go fishing. For a Mets team that pretty much is 10 games below 500 at home at Citi Field this season, they want to right the ship, and no better way to do so after splitting your series against the Philadelphia Phillies in London. Of course, you have won 4 of your past 5 games. The Mets currently stand around 3 to 3.5 games out of a wild card spot, and now they have received the best news possible internally. Francisco Alvarez, El Troll, Mr. Alvy himself, has in fact returned. And as a corresponding move being activated off the injured list, Francisco Alvarez back, Tomas Nido gone. Nido has already tweeted and has said how much he appreciated his time as a Met, 12 years in the organization. It's rest assured that his time with the Mets has come to an end, even if he does say have the opportunity to be outrighted to AAA Syracuse. All indications is that he now can, in fact, decline and likely will decline. And unfortunately for the Mets, the Philadelphia Phillies might just be Tomas Nido's suitor. We'll get into a little bit more on that, why exactly that could be. But I'm so happy to have everyone first chiming in live on a replay here for our latest pregame segment, as we're not only breaking down what's going to transpire between these two teams in this 3-game set with Mr. Big Drip Tyler McGill on the bump tonight for the Amazons, and for Miami, they have Jesus Luzardo, a desirable name that will more than likely be dealt by this year's trade deadline. What will Luzardo have in store for the Mets today, as Jose Iglesias once again gets a start against a lefty versus Jeff McNeil? So Jeff, who again has only started in 1 game for the past week plus, is on the bench yet again today for the Mets, as Jose Iglesias, the high contact hitting second baseman, will command things in the 9-hole. A lot to get into in today's show before we get to our post-game show later on tonight after the conclusion of tonight's ball game. But first and foremost, plenty of key updates to get into. Everybody, can we just appreciate the Francisco Alvarez return? The excitement has finally happened. Again, we're looking at the past 2 months without Francisco Alvarez, and the Mets have been 17-31 during that span. So to say I'm excited to see the young King back at the backstop is an understatement. And I know, yes, I know, everyone's going to be like, Wardy, pump the brakes. One, still a young catcher is not going to dictate your Mets team directly making playoffs or not. I will preface that Francisco Alvarez's impact in this organization is of such significance that you will all see before your very eyes starting tonight. Even if he looks rusty, even if he strikes out on 3 pitches against Luzardo 1 or multiple times, I assure you, you will see the immediate impact in his game calling, his ability, his pop time, throwing to first, second, and third. That's going to help slow down these runners, which have been running absolutely bananas on the Mets all season long. I cannot emphasize just how big and how important of a return it is for Francisco Alvarez to not only be back in this lineup, but to be catching the majority of games here. And that will at least Torrens having a Barry Bonds-esque past week of games for the Mets, doing every way possible to impact the team for the better, not only on the offensive end. That's why the Barry Bonds quote, it doesn't really make sense. They're just, again, a better player than what he's been throughout his career in certain rights. Torrens has gotten the job done so well for the Mets, including that amazing double play to end the game there in London against the Phillies to split the series. That is what has warranted Torrens to stay on this roster, and we'll get into what exactly we can expect from him, not only sample size wise, but his role as the Mets backup catcher for the foreseeable future. I see everybody here in the live chat. How you doing, folks? We got Guardian of Chaos, great moderator, as always. Happy to have you in here. Straight talk with Jack Ram, my man. He's pumped up about Alvarez. Yep, we're all pumped, my man. We got Zach. We got Ifakandra. How you doing? We got Daniel. We got Sal. Hello. BR, great member. Jason, Murdoch, everybody. First chiming in live on a replay. Steven, great member. PB, great member. Happy to have you guys here too. Will White, how you doing? Chris Norton, everybody and your mother. Happy to have you all in here as we're breaking down the latest, folks. And as we get into all the key updates on the Mets here, what we can expect from both sides today, how they're matching up between Tyler McGill and Jesus Luzardo. We're also going to get into my picks and plays of the day, yes. And folks, I am in fact picking the New York Metropolitans as one of my favorite bets tonight. Yes, you heard that correctly. So if you don't want a tail, I don't blame you whatsoever. But we're going to get into it here shortly with our great friends at BetUS, folks, because we are doing a Mets jersey giveaway that ends at the end of this week. So if you guys want to enter for your chance to have a player of any you want currently on the roster's jersey to rock coming out of pocket from your boy Wardy, make sure you chime in throughout the entire pregame segment by time we get to that part of breakdown how you guys can enter today with just a couple simple steps. Without with our great and amazing sponsor here, our great friends at BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook. Check them out today by clicking the link down below for 125% bonus on not your first, not your second, but your first 3 deposits. And as you guys and gals can see down below, the Mets are currently the money line favorite tonight at -152. It did change to -151 here on BetUS because odds are ever changing, of course, leading up to the game. So ever so slight there. But again, they are the favorite over the Miami Marlins for obvious reasons. And we'll get into more on why exactly that is and does that make sense here shortly in the show. What do you think, Scott? When do I think Scott will be back? I don't know the specific day. I'd have to look at the Mets schedule here on what makes most sense to slot him back into this rotation. But I do imagine that he will be back with the Mets at some point over this next week. And I'm very much so looking forward to it. Justin, appreciate the kind words. The kiddo is not here yet. Not here yet, but we're getting awfully close. I will be mighty surprised if a week or so from now of us talking that I don't have a little Wardy to be dealing with. So again, still in the process. Not there yet, but we're in the home stretch, and I appreciate you asking. Thank you. It's kind of ironic that they replaced Nido now. All the years he has struggled hitting in the 1 year he's actually hitting decently gets DFA'd. I know. It is unfortunate for Nido's case, and we'll get into that. Dave, great member. How are you, my friend? Happy to have you in here, folks. All right, everybody, let's start off today's show by really having a further emphasis on Francisco Alvarez, right? Because in case you guys have been living under a rock, Francisco Alvarez has been out with a thumb injury for the past couple months, ever since he went down there against the LA Dodgers in early May. And as soon as that happened, if it wasn't April, it was early May. As soon as that happened, I knew that we were going to have a problem. I knew we were going to miss Alvarez for a decent period of time. And to miss Alvarez for as long as we did was brutal, but to get him back, just out of the first week of June is a good thing. This is the same guy that flew to Venezuela just a couple days ago for a family matter, returned, and is back ready for this Tuesday's game when there was initial belief that he wouldn't be ready. Alvarez is jumping for joy. He's like a kid in a candy shop, back in that clubhouse, back in the locker room. And when being interviewed by SNY today, just said he's excited. There's no excuse. There's nothing holding him back. He's 100% ready to go. There's not one singular problem that he at least can identify. So Alvarez, as we know, is such a lightning rod for this Mets team. If you're wondering, Wardy, why is he so significant? Why is Francisco Alvarez such a point of emphasis today upon his arrival? It is the following. Alvarez, again, the 21-year-old last season, 25 home runs, 51 runs scored, 63 RBIs in a $120 games. We're looking at a 209 average, a 284 OBP, a 437 slug, 4.567. So again, we're still looking at over 700 OPS for an Alvarez who, as we know, last season absolutely nosedived as all the hype of the team died there past the trade deadline. Alvarez had a 97 WRC plus, which means he was 3% below league average as a batter, but not far. Defensively, he was superior to say the least. A negative offensive player per Fangraphs, however, a plus 20 defender gave him a solid 3 WAR. So Francisco Alvarez alone, as a 21-year-old, acquainted for 3 individual wins for the Mets single-handedly last season based on the numbers of WAR. As we look at this season, Francisco Alvarez hasn't done a lot offensively in a limited sample size, but when I tell you the best is yet to come, it couldn't be a bigger understatement. The 22-year-old in 6 games and 59 play appearances this season, just 1 home run, 8 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 236, 288, and 364 clip for a 91 WRC plus, and again, a .2 WAR. But why is Alvarez so important? Because this is a guy that understands this pitching staff more than anyone else. And as great as Tomas Nido was during his stint here while he was up with the team, because he had that dry eye syndrome, he got that all figured out, he was seeing the ball well, he was catching well, he was defending well, he was throwing decent. But Alvarez, you not only get an electric arm, you get a superior defender. Literally, Francisco Alvarez is a top catcher in Major League Baseball. I'm here to tell you that right now. He is without question a top 5 catcher in the game when he's playing his game. And when he's at his absolute hottest, you can make the argument that he's top 2, top 3. I mean, he is that good when Francisco Alvarez is right and playing his game. And this is not just a Mets fan really gloating and trying to put this guy on a pedestal. It's reality. If you've watched any Francisco Alvarez since the start, really, of him being called up in the 2023 season after Omar Narvaez went down with injury. So Alvarez, the Mets don't only get a guy that is a surefire guarantee, 25 to 35 home run bat every single season when playing a normal course of 162. To have him now in the depth of this lineup is so exciting to see. When I look at the Mets lineup today, as you guys can see, as you guys can see right here, I absolutely love it. I love the decision by Mendy today. I love that Iglesias is batting 9th. I don't love that Alvarez is batting 8th, but it's his first game back. I'm not going to give him a hard hard time. As long as he isn't batting eighth for the entire week, I'm cool with that. I would like to see Alvarez anywhere from 4th through 6th, though, at some point over the next calendar week, as long as it obviously makes sense with the offense. Because Marte, while he has been a glaring hole defensively, offensively he has been productive, which is what's justified him batting 5th, 6th as of late for the Mets here in the lineup. Mark Vientos has been doing his thing. But you look at the power potential here with this Mets team. Through the roof with Alvarez. Brandon Alvarez, Vientos, JDM, Nimmo when he's right, because Nimmo hasn't done a whole lot of much outside of some great 2-out hitting we saw in the last game. But the power implementation hasn't been there to the same degree as of late. He just hasn't looked comfortable in that 3-hole. The way Lindor has looked beyond comfortable in the leadoff spot, you could rightfully counter. Lindor, though, of course, batting leadoff. Alonso, Nimmo, JDM, Marte, Vientos, Bader, Alvarez, Iglesias. There's so much power potential with the Mets here when everything's going right, of course, and I know that's a lot to ask for a Mets team, naturally, as fans. But then you add in the defensive implementation, and that is where I really think we are going to see rather quickly just how good of a player Francisco Alvarez is. AZ, thank you so much for the donation. He says, before the injury, the Mets were 11-5 with Alvarez. Without him, the Mets are 17-35. His confidence is what the Mets need to go on a tear. 100%. Yes. Yep, and there is something to be said about the Mets' lack of success since Alvarez went down with injury, because they had major problems, not only with Omar Narvaez being such a net negative that he single-handedly factored into multiple losses for the Mets when Nido wasn't catching, and we're going to exclude the one walk-off Narvaez had. Whoop-de-doo. You were behind and just blooped one opposite field for your first and last hit at Citi Field. I don't give a rat's ass. $8 million down the drain. Just very James McCann-esque. I wonder if they had their dinner yet. A nice steak dinner between the two schmucks that just robbed the Mets blind and millions. And that's the Mets front office's fault. It's not their fault. It is what it is. I digress. When we talk a bit more here about Francisco Alvarez and Tomas Nido, let's get into it, because Tomas Nido, again, thank you for the compliment, Cuban. Appreciate that. Tomas Nido has done a fantastic job since being called upon by the Mets this season. But the problem, there's been one guy that's played just a little bit more fantastic. And when I say just a little bit more fantastic, I mean, even if this is just a lightning in a bottle, the one downside, I will say, the one thing that sticks out to me about the Mets, if they do, in fact, not do, but now that they are continuing to ride with Luis Torrens over Tomas Nido, is this is a Luis Torrens who hasn't caught much of the staff yet. Again, it's just a week versus a Nido who's been in the organization for a while, understands a lot of these guys, including a Christian Scott, for example. I know Alvarez does too, so I'm not mightily worried there. But Torrens, for me, my only concern is you want to make sure that what we've gotten from him isn't just a lightning in a bottle. So when we do call for him to, say, start on average 1 game out of 3 in a series, because Alvarez, even though we will see Alvarez start more than 3 games in a row, naturally as a catcher, you're going to give them some days off because they got to get their knees healed up naturally, even if they're the best option. But Torrens, though, in just 6 games and 18 plate appearances, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, a 313, 389, 750 clip for a 219 WRC plus, over 100% better than the average batter in baseball. Again, it's such a silly small sample size that it only means so much, but that's all the Mets needed to see to make sure that they were going to be swayed for Luis Torrens, in which the Mets are only paying $100,000 of his salary on right now. That is a sneaky move by David Stearns there, not spending a dime for the most part, versus a Tomas Nido, who, again, I will preface, has done well since being caught up by the Mets, but it just feels like this ship has sailed. Again, if the Mets aren't going to keep Nido now, they never were. And Torrens is a guy who has stood out so mightily. The defense has looked strong. To have the alertness the way he did to get that double play, that 2-3 double play there, was absolutely insane in London. You do not see that happen very often. That, I think, was the icing on the cake for the Mets to make their decision. But then you have Tomas Nido, for example, just to give you guys some context here. In 32 games and 90 play appearances, a 229 average, a 261 OBP, a 361 slug, a 80 WRC plus, a plus defender at 4.5 for a .5 WAR. Again, defense is what is Tomas Nido's thing. And again, he did provide some power kind of out of nowhere for the Mets. We've definitely seen pitchers better than he has in the past. So all in all, I'm happy to see Torrens stay on the team. He deserved that right. He played his absolute tail off this past week. It's very unfortunate for Tomas Nido as a guy who's been in the organization so long, but now Nido is going to likely thrive elsewhere. And as I brought up the Philadelphia Phillies, the reason for that simply was the Phillies just found out JT Realmuto is going to be out for a decent period of time with knee surgery. This is something that he was trying to fight off the past month, couldn't any longer. And while Trey Turner will be returning to the lineup shortly from all that we know, losing JT Realmuto hurts a lot. And Garrett Stubbs, outside of being the piece of shit that he is, trying to lay out Luis Torrens catcher-on-catcher crime there in that London game. I mean, the next time Stubbs, that short schmuck, and I'm a short schmuck, so I could say it too, from one short schmuck to another, that short schmuck is, next time he's at Citi Field, I hope fans let him hear it, because that was such a ridiculous play. Nonsense. To break it down the slide, he had the tag from a mile away, still did the slide. It was disgusting. Thankfully, Torrens was okay, thankfully. But no less, outside of Stubbs, they don't really have much there. I can't speak on organizationally what the Phillies have in the minor leagues, so maybe they do have something. But just at the MLB level, Tomas Nido fits that role of that immediate help at the backstop position, a split time with Garrett Stubbs until JT Realmuto returns from injury. Could they go a different avenue? Could they go with Omar Narvaez for all we know? Sure. But if I'm a betting man between the two, I do think Nido gets picked up by the Phillies. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on that front for sure. Mendoza, I think, has a relationship and knowledge of Torrens. Oh, yes, of course he does. I mean, again, Mendoza was a long-time bench boss there to help out Aaron Boone with the Yankees. Torrens is a former Yank. There's some connection there naturally. So, yeah, I can see that making a level of sense as well. And as well, speaking of not only the Mets and their catching position right now, but on the topic of Mendoza and providing updates, we did hear an update today regarding Mr. Edwin Diaz. Edwin threw a bullpen today. Everything looked good. He said he saw it himself. And Diaz will be activated, reinstated off the 15-day injured list with that shoulder impingement this Thursday. So Edwin Diaz will be back in the Mets bullpen in 48 hours or so from now. So Edwin, again, who struggled mightily leading up until that, shoulder impingement, 15-day IL stint, cough, cough. Where's Billy Epler when you need him, right? If you know, you know. I will say this about Diaz. He is not going to light the world on fire the way that we have loved him to do in the 2022 season. However, we just need to find comfortability. We need him to build his confidence back, and we need to have more of a guarantee still at the closer role. Because at the end of the day, the Mets have this guy on a $100 million contract. They need him to be, at minimum, a capable reliever and a guy that isn't going to blow multiple save opportunities back to back to back out there the way that he famously did in 2019. So I'm excited to have Nido back, but I definitely have a slight concern as to what we're getting in Diaz, just because there's a lot of uncertainty there. So wishing, again, Edwin the best upon his arrival. We'll see what happens on that front. But that's kind of all the latest updates, if you will, on health statuses for guys. And Scott Greenwood, I agree with you. Definitely feel bad for Nido a little bit, but it's his business, and Torrens has outplayed him. And I'm personally in the market of winning games and doing everything in your power to win games more than I am in the market of caring about, feelings, if that makes sense. I've been so fed up with the lack of winning with the Mets, especially over the past couple of years since I started covering them, that I've steered far more in direction of not always team first, because I definitely love the player implementation. I love the relationships I've had the privilege of building with players and things of that nature. But, players come and go, but the team lasts forever, right? The name on the back of your jersey may carry weight, but the logo on the front is what's going to carry most. So, again, whatever is going to make the team better at the end of the day is what I'm down for. And I do have faith, obviously, in David Stearns. If you guys aren't new here, you know that. Let's see. Carson in the chat says, Alvarez back to catch Miguel's 27K no-hitter tonight. Good to know. Oh, well, thank you. Now I got to knock on wood to make sure that doesn't happen. That does happen still, right? That's what I meant to say, Carson. I'm very excited to see not only Miguel pitch tonight after what was a less than ideal last outing out there versus, not versus, but with Mr. Francisco Alvarez. And before we pivot, everybody, into breaking down a bit more on the lineups, what I like, what I don't like, how these teams are matching up in this 3-game set. Again, we're going to get into it all shortly, folks. But before I do have to share with you briefly here the awesome, and I truly mean fantastic giveaway we're doing here on WardyNYM. It has everything to do with our amazing sponsor at BetUS. So as you guys know, in our pregame segments that we do weekly, haven't been overly consistent with them so far this season because the Mets haven't been consistent. So when the Mets actually find some consistency in their game, we have good headlines to discuss. Your boy will be out here on a more consistent basis, as I'm already out here every single night doing post-game coverage when I've covered far more losses than wins since covering the Mets 3.5 years ago. But I got 3 picks I like for you guys with our great friends at BetUS to check them out today to place your bets. Of course, bet responsibly, but when it comes to betting, BetUS has you covered with all your sports betting needs. There are 3 picks I like today. They are as follows. Then I'll get into a bit on the jersey giveaway. They are following: Mets money line. Yes, I know they may have a London hangover. I expect some jet lag this week. The Miami Marlins, even with Jesus Luzardo, who I know can carve up this Mets team, the Mets have done much better as of late against southpaw starting pitching. That's something to make note of. And 2, it's the Miami Marlins. So when you look at their lineup alone, there's nothing to rationally justify this team winning the series against the Mets. The same way that they shouldn't have won the series the last time the Mets matched up against them, but the Mets played so Metsian that it in fact happened. So Mets money line is not something that I hammer often. That's why I have it in the color orange and not green. Green basically means I have the utmost confidence in the game, in my personal pick, my opinion. Orange means I don't have the utmost confidence, but there is a confidence level above 50%. So I have, again, minus 151 odds there on the money line against the Marlins. That simply means if you deposit 151 bucks and the Mets win outright, you come out with an additional 100. So you come out with 251. You look at the Baltimore Orioles here, run line. The O's have been on an absolute heater, playing 30 games in 31 days. We talked about the Baltimore Orioles on Bleacher Report today. Upset a lot of Yankee fans because the Yank fans thought I was going to pick the Yanks to win the division this year when I'm still riding with the O's. Just because they're 2.5 out means very little to me with how deep and how young and how vibrant this Orioles team is. And I discussed it all in my Bleacher Report segment that is available for you all to check out on the community tab here on YouTube. That has the link available, or you can go in the Bleacher Report app, go to MLB News or Rumors, scroll down a little bit, and you will find my live show breaking down AL division winners. And tomorrow I'll be live around 11 a.m. Eastern, same time, breaking down NL division winners. I'm sorry to break it to you, Mets fans. I'm going to let you know right now, I'm not picking the Mets out of the NL East. I know, it might be a crazy thought, but I'm not doing it. O's run line, though, against the Braves. They're somehow the underdog tonight, money line straight, for a Braves team that's been squandering big time lately with their injuries and inconsistencies. Love Baltimore here at plus 1.5. Again, that means they either have to win or lose by no more than a run and a half at minus 115 odds. I love that. Even with Max Fried matching up here against the O's, I really like the O's to keep this a close ball game, even if they lose. But I think they have a good chance of winning tonight. Pittsburgh Pirates, again, I know this is a tight one. Pirates and Cardinals are neck and neck in the standings right now. But you know what Pittsburgh has that the Cardinals don't? It is a competent starter and an electric starter. No, not Miles Michaelis, the schmuck that he is. We're talking about Paul Skeens. We're talking about the flame-throwing rookie that's taking the league by storm every single time he's out there every 5th day. And Mr. Paul Skeens is matching up against Miles Michaelis. So do the simple math. I love Paul Skeens. I hate Miles Michaelis. There's your decision. So that's a 3-pick parlay. That is $10. That wins you just under 40. Good luck to you all that tail. But if you guys are still listening and watching right now, let me tell you a bit about this Mets jersey giveaway. Because all you guys and gals need to do to enter this jersey giveaway is 2 unbelievably simple steps, and they are as follows. It is 1, sign up to BetUS by clicking my link down below in the description of the live show here. It's in the description of every show I do on YouTube, so even if you guys missed out on this live show but heard about this, you can find it in another description here on YouTube on the channel. Click the link, sign up today, you get 125% bonus too with your first 3 deposits. Whenever you sign up, of course, make sure it's before the end of the week. Place one singular bet of any type of sports bet that you want to do. Doesn't need to be baseball. Can be $1, can be $1,000. I don't really care how much you spend. All I care about is that you did those simple steps, so that way I know you guys put the effort in. Then do yourself a favor and send your boy Wardy a email of, showing proof of the screenshot that you at least placed one bet to my email at DRAWT7 at protonmail.com. That, again, is available for you in the description of the live show as well. That's all you got to do. Sign up, place a bet, and send me proof that you placed a bet. We've already had around 4 or 5 people get in on this. I can count on my hand comfortably, and we're looking to obviously double, if not triple this. So, again, just to emphasize, you guys have a chance to win a $200 jersey. Right now, your odds are like 1 in 5 to the people that have done it. So if you guys add in another 5, it's 1 in 10, maybe 1 in 20, 1 in 30. What is the point here? Your odds at winning a free Mets jersey of any player that you currently want on the roster are far greater here than any other giveaway that you're going to find out there right now. So do yourself a favor if you haven't already. If you guys like sports betting, or if you like to dabble at least a little bit, check out our great friends at BetUS. Do the simple steps, hit up my email, and let's have some fun and collaborate together. And let me give you a free Mets jersey, because why the hell not, right? So good luck to everybody that enters, and thank you all so much for hearing me out, as always, with our great friends at BetUS. LTC Cherno, thank you so much for the $2 donation. He says, Missed Alvy, any Drew Gilbert news? Yep, nope, nothing really on Gilbert's slow roll there. It's a damn shame how many guys are currently injured in the minor leagues for the Mets. And actually, I want to pull this up now because Daniel Wexler, great follow on Twitter if you guys don't know already, he tweeted this earlier today, and it's true, and I just want to emphasize it because it's just a further reality of the Mets' injuries in the farm at the moment. Jet Williams, Drew Gilbert, Ronnie Mauricio, Kevin Parada. Ronnie Mauricio is the one that's been injured, as we know. Jet, Drew, to a certain extent. Marco Vargas, Jacob Reimer. Again, all guys that are huge parts of the farm are on the injured list currently. Calvin Ziegler, Nathan Lavender, that we know. Ziegler was initially a second-round pick by the Mets a couple years ago out of Canada. He's dealt with a plethora of injuries since being acquired, unfortunately. And Nathan Lavender, who took spring training by storm, doing his best Nestor Cortez impression as this crafty lefty out there, he is out with the season with Tommy John surgeries too. So, unfortunate realities with the Mets farm in a year that you're trying to develop and see more out of these kids. The guys can't stay healthy to save their life. I don't know. The Mets sent their their previous regime, athletic trainers to the minor leagues, but something's happening and that needs to change because we need these kids healthy and we want to give them an opportunity. Darren Fletcher did do a fantastic job on the London call. That is correct, Roy. Absolutely. Let me catch up in the chat here a little bit, folks, just briefly. Let's hear. Thank you, Tomas, your class act, 100%. Mets are at home. I almost bet that money line. I know, yeah, the Mets are at home. I'm going to be honest, the Mets at home worries me a lot more than them being on the road because on the road, the Mets are above 500. At home, they're well below 500. I mean, the Mets have been putrid at home this season, but something's got to give at some point, right? And a series against Miami and then San Diego should hopefully help a bit in that regard. Nido will land somewhere that will allow him to perhaps play more than he has with the Mets, for sure. Wardy, I did a Baltimore, Philly, Mets, Dodgers parlay, plus 836, $20, when you 187. Ooh, good luck, my friend. I wish you the absolute luck. All I got to say is make sure you get involved with our great friends at BetUS in case you haven't. Appreciate that. But Daniel, big bet. Wishing you the best, my man. That's a fun one to tail, isn't it? I don't like to do parlays beyond 3 legs usually. Every once in a while, I'll do 4. When they hit, it's amazing. When it doesn't, it's as expected, right? But let's talk about the lineups here, everybody. Let's talk about how much the Miami Marlins are a shit show because they're once again doing a full rebuild with Peter Bendix. Something that Josh Bell, Jazz Chisholm Jr., Brian De La Cruz, and Jesus Sanchez all have, and Jesus Luzardo all have in unison to a degree, is that these are guys that likely will not be on the Miami Marlins past the first week of August because they will likely be traded. Jake Berger, Adam in the mix, even though no one wants Berger right now with his current numbers. For the Mets, the same thing can be said with certain guys, whether it's Jeff McNeil, whether it's JD Martinez. I mean, F it. Even if it's Jose Iglesias, Harrison Bader, Luis Severino, Sean Manaea. I mean, the list goes on and on. The Mets have so many expendable players, but they aren't in the position that Miami's currently in. And Miami's lineup tonight is as follows for a team that, of course, is going nowhere this season because of their change in front office and once again failing when they had a core group that could have been more entertaining beyond their little playoff run that they had last year. Chaz Chisholm Jr., 745 OPS. Brian De La Cruz, 722 OPS at DH. Josh Bell, 713 OPS at first. Jake Berger, sub 600 OPS at the hot corner. Jesus Sanchez, 630 OPS. Commanding right field, Otto Lopez, who's done well against the Mets in the past, I believe, 745 OPS. Commanding second base, Nick Gordon in left field with a 641 OPS. Tim Anderson, a former White Sox great when he was balling out for a number of years, far from it now, commanding eighth and shortstop. And Nick Fortes, who always does well against the Mets, it feels like, always hits some key bombs, even when he has a freaking OPS of sub 500. 456 to be exact, is your catcher. Jesus Luzardo, 5.3 ERA on the season. Expected numbers favor him a bit more at 4.47. Young, exciting southpaw that's been up and down this season, while also dealing with some ailments earlier in the year. Mets run line looks more appealing. They can pull it off. You think? I disagree. I personally think the money line's more appealing because the Mets are the money line favorite tonight. So if you take run line, they need to win by at least 2 runs. That might happen for sure, but that's too much for me to want to commit to. I'd rather just do money line outright versus them, winning and having to make sure they score at least 2 runs because they are the favorite. When is Senga expected to return? Not until at minimum sometime in the second half. Post All-Star break is what I should be saying. And for those that don't know, the All-Star break is the game is around July 16th, I believe. And we're doing a big promotion starting tonight in our post-game coverage regarding said All-Star break. So make sure you guys and gals are there in case you aren't planning on it already. Huge. When I tell you we are doing such a massive giveaway with our great friends at Sower MLB, funny enough, is unbelievable. Like, dummy. I mean, the Mets jersey giveaway we're doing right now is fun, but I assure you, the one that we're going to announce here in tonight's show is just ridiculous on how easy it is for you guys to enter and get involved with something truly magical, I think. So, yes, it has to do with the All-Star break. So, I will announce that here in tonight's post-game coverage, and I hope to see all of you there. But we talked about there with the Miami Marlins. As we know, Miami has been not too good this season. They've had their fair share of struggles right now for a 22-43 team versus a 28-36 Mets. And speaking of the 28-36 Mets, as we take a look at their lineup here, I know I read it off. I'll read it off one more time. Francisco Lindor, batting leadoff, 710 OPS, shortstop. Pete Alonso, sub-800 OPS, first base. Brandon Nimmo, 727 OPS, left field. JD Martinez, how you doing, JD? He does well against Miami. Let's see how he does here. 767 OPS, DH. Sterling Marte, 750 OPS, right field, former Miami Marlin, former friend turned foe now with the Mets. Mark Vientos, 980 OPS because he's a dog, commanding the hot corner. Harrison Bader, sub-700 OPS, commanding center. Francisco Alvarez, 652 OPS at the backstop position. So excited to see Alvarez back. And Jose Iglesias with a sub-940 OPS, commanding the 9-hole and second base over Jeff McNeil. Now, if there's something you guys haven't noticed, let me enlighten you a little bit. You take a look right here on Jesus Luzardo. You guys see how Jesus Luzardo right down here. Let's get right down there. Yep. 530 ERA, 447 expected ERA. What does that mean? The expected numbers tell you a bit more about Jesus Luzardo, and that when the defense is not as much of a factor behind him and he just can solely control what he can do as a pitcher, he has more favorable numbers. The reason why this is a point of emphasis, in my opinion, is when you take a look at the other side of Tyler McGill. And when you take a look at Tyler McGill, he's got a flat 3 ERA on the season, but a 4.84 expected ERA. Why is that not a good thing? Because what that means is Tyler McGill has been getting lucky. He has looked sharp in his first couple starts since coming off the IL. He did not look overly sharp in his last start there for the Mets. How will he look today with the command? Will he have the walks down? Can we have, say, at best, at absolute worst, I should say, a 2-walk outing from Tyler McGill? Or are we going to get anywhere from the 3 to 5 range, right? This is a lineup that he should be attacking heavy, often. Why the hell not? It's the Miami Marlins. I don't give a rat's ass that this is a Mets team that has fluctuated with their lack of production as a whole this season. I want to see pitchers attack the zone, and I want them to stop walking everyone their mother. Because if there's one thing Miami can execute tonight, if they don't execute well on the offensive end, is their ability to run on the bags. And that is something the Mets have struggled mightily with. And while I have faith in Francisco Alvarez, there's only so much you can do if guys don't have great pickoff moves. I know McGill at times can be quick to his throw at first, but overall, we all know Miami will be running once to get on the base pass. They're a bit more vibrant of a team to a degree than the Mets in certain aspects, especially Jazz Chisholm leading off. He is, of course, a speed demon as always. So for the Mets here, a couple things. I want to see how Tyler McGill does in his own without heavily relying on the defense behind him, 1. And 2, I want to see where he looks when it comes to his command of the zone. This is a Miami Marlins team that there is zero reason whatsoever not to go full-fledged, balls to the wall, crazy, hammer that strike zone, even if he gets barreled. Trust, have faith in your outfield defense. Have trust and faith in your outfield and your infield defense. Yes, I know putting faith into Sterling Marte and his defense is probably the worst thing you could possibly do here in the year of 2024, but you got to do what you got to do right now. I know he's been unbelievably screwed by the defense in the past, but right now things are suggesting defense has actually been something that has helped Tyler McGill so far this season. I want to see him have dominance. I want him to look like a true starter that can give the Mets 6 innings of 1 or 2 earned run ball tonight against the Miami Marlins. He should go 7, but given again the fluctuation with how deep he can go into games and his lack of control consistently, I'm just hoping that we can get a McGill 6 inning at worst 2 earned run ball, and how the Mets not only in this ball game but hopefully have a victory on his side by the end of it. Again, I don't care what anyone says. You look at these two lineups, You look at how pretty this lineup looks for the most part with the talent level there. You look at these schmucks over here. This is not to slight Miami Marlins fans. This is just a point of emphasis on the reality here. This is a team the Mets should be absolutely beating up on, and this is a team that should be beating up on said team. That is how these things should be going. I'm worried about balls being hit into right field unless Mendoza told Marte to move his ass. Yeah, again, I have a concern in right field today too. I absolutely do, but it's just one of those things we got to deal with, right? And folks, we have plenty more that we'll get into here before we wrap up our pregame show. We'll be live for the next, still probably another tops 10 minutes or so. So as we continue on with our segment here, everybody, any key hard-hitting questions you got for me, especially with this isn't post-game format. So if you guys want to ask away specific things, now is the time to do so. Also be on the lookout, everybody. We'll see how I'm feeling with tonight. We may take live callers in tonight's show. It will really be indicative on the course of the game, really what happened in this one in particular. I have an early BR segment tomorrow as well, so that may play in hand with why I may not take callers. No less, be on the lookout. Callers may be happening. Also trying to get some guests on this week too, so be on the lookout. If not callers, I'm going to try to push for some guests. There might be some shows where it's just me, but I definitely want to have some form of collaboration happening this week, even if it's only for a couple days, because I do know when we get onto the Padres series, I will be collabing plenty with my great friend and the #1 Padres YouTuber out there right now, Mr. Borna Nazari, aka Hogwatch, that you guys know very well. Borna and I have collaborated plenty in the past. I even went to his place in San Diego last summer when the Mets were in San Diego. That was a lot of fun. Had an absolute blast. May or may not have met Tommy Pham during that trip. So I'll leave you with that regarding the Tommy Pham stuff there. But when talking about collaboration, expect plenty as we get into that Padres series. But if we can do any live callers throughout the Miami series, I would definitely like to make that happen. Wardy, what's your guess on how many more games Nimmo bats third if he keeps struggling? I honestly don't know, because the Mets have really liked Lindor in leadoff, and it's like, how much lower are you going to move? I think if you can make one counter, if you really want to move Nimmo, and I don't know again how much good it's going to do for you, but if Marte's contact hitting continues to thrive, you can consider moving Marte up in the 3-hole and putting Nimmo in either the 5 or 6 spot, right? I can understand the 6 spot, especially if you move Vientos up a hair. But yeah, I don't know when it's going to happen. That I can't answer for you. I truly do not have a clue. I just want to see how he looks this series in particular. Lefty-lefty matchup. Nimmo famously does well against lefties. How will he do against Luzardo tonight? That's a big one. Luzardo is very hittable. He's very hit or miss, though. But again, it doesn't take much for him to have a dominant outing against this Mets team, right? Do I think the Mets beat Luzardo, considering I'm picking them for my bet tonight? Yeah, I do. I think the Mets win, even if they don't dominate Jesus. I do think that they come out tonight. How's it going, Ben? Might be trade watch possibility, possibly with Randy Arozarena and Brian Wu, both scratched tonight. Mets hopefully can take care of this, the Marlins for sure. Not a chance in hell I see any big trade happening on June 11th with Randy Arozarena or Brian Wu. I wouldn't buy into that right now personally, but I will say that yes, a lot of times where there's smoke, there's fire. Expect a lot to pick up with those respective guys, because Brian Wu is a guy that the Mariners can trade and still have a beyond stable rotation. He's a number 5 starter, and he's been dominant. He's been fantastic. But they can trade away a young, controllable piece like him for a good return for a Mariners team that absolutely is just a couple bats away from really trying to run away with the AL West this year. So, yeah, I like Seattle making moves, and I wouldn't be shocked if they traded a starter. I don't see it happening now, though. Randy Arozarena has just fallen so far from grace this year, but he just feels like that type of guy where even if he has fallen from grace, as soon as he's with a team that has more of a run in them, some playoff juice, especially when he gets close to the playoffs, Randy's going to show up like he always does. I have a confidence level there, too. I really do. Citi Field is a pitcher's park. Yep, us walking hitters is so counterintuitive to how the stadium was built. So yeah, let them put the damn ball in play 100%. Yep, that's another great point that I wasn't even emphasizing with you, Scott, but it's true. This is not a batter's park. As we know, Citi Field has always been a pitcher-friendly ballpark, so it makes all the more sense and all the more reason in the world to want to try to put the ball in play consistently, because you know there's a greater likelihood of that ball dying a little bit on the warning track versus, say, you're hitting out in Cincy or hitting out in Colorado or hitting out, in Citizens Bank Park against the Phillies, right? Jack, thank you so much for the donation, my man. Jack says, put this in the baby account. Thank you so much. Really does mean a lot. Let's see. Do I get paternity leave? So how YouTube works, because I'm my own boss, I don't get paternity leave. I'm just probably going to not do post-game coverage for, if I had to guess, a couple days. Might have some form of content out that was either pre-record or, even a little video on the side in the aftermath after I'm out of the hospital. But yeah, no paternity leave. I may even have some people come in and host things for me if I'm not physically able to be here, but if, say, big games happen that we still want to cover, I won't be long before I'm back with you guys once Baby Wardy is officially here, because, at the end of the day, this is my job, and it's very important now more than ever that I'm working my absolute tail off. So I'm going to be working a lot, even with Baby Wardy being in here sooner than later. So be on the lookout for that. While this will be a hectic year for me with a lot of things changing my personal life, the one thing that'll hold true, and honestly might even have a heavier emphasis than prior, we'll see what happens and see how much I can handle, the balancing the life of obviously being a full-time YouTuber and being, a new dad. But it's really going to be building this thing the best way we can. And the more the Mets thrive, the more we will thrive, and the more that we will grow and expand and do exciting things. A lot of certain things have just been put on the back burner naturally because the Mets haven't given us a reason to go out of our way to do more than what we've done with this point with coverage and all these kind of things. I want the Mets to give us a reason so that we can really get this thing rolling, but rest assured, content will be happening plenty post Baby Wardy, and I cannot wait for that announcement to happen with you guys. Jack, thank you so much for the donation. That goes right to the baby. Appreciate that. Already on the lookout. Oh, you're the best, Vintage. Love you, my man. Thank you so much for that. I'm not letting you guys know the sex or the name because that is what the announcement is for. All you guys know is that I'm having a baby. So once the baby's here, I will post some type of announcement. I don't know exactly to what degree that's going to be yet, but it's going to be something cute and something that I'm going to be very happy about, and that you guys will understand why exactly I played everything the way I did once the announcement is made. Who gets DFA'd for Diaz on Thursday? I'd imagine, based on the bullpen configuration, if Josh Walker's still up with the Mets, I'd imagine he's the one that goes down. Could be wrong, though. Danny Young, I expect to stay, but Josh Walker, if he's still actively in the Mets bullpen, he's someone that I'd imagine will be sent down, barring any changes right now. Let's see. And Andres, thank you for the kind words, too. I appreciate that. All great questions, guys. Thank you for them. Really does mean a lot, everybody. Let me get to a couple more of your comments, questions before we wrap up the show in the next 5 minutes or so. Again, thank you all so much for taking the time today for our latest pregame segment. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. We're all pumped up. It's Alvy Day, baby. If there's one thing that's going good to Metsland right now, it's the return, the arrival of Mr. El Troll himself, Francisco Alvarez. Alvarez needs to prove he can hit third. He may. It might not take long before Alvarez proves he's like, I should be way up in the lineup, right? Thank you so much, James. I appreciate it on the early Father's Day. Was my confidence level that the Mets can still make playoffs with the turn of Alvarez scale 1 to 10? That's a great question. And I'll get to the poll here shortly before after I answer this, because I don't want to have a bias. My confidence level in Alvarez returning, the Mets making playoffs, my confidence level, and let me put it this way. Prior to Alvarez returning, my confidence level sitting at a 4. Upon Alvarez's return, I'm at a 5.5. I'm at a 5.5. And the reason why I'm at a 5.5 is because Alvarez is such a game changer, one, and there's so much more baseball to be had, too. And while, yes, I know that June is a make or break, this homestand is make or break in certain ways for the Mets. The Mets have a losing homestand against Miami and San Diego. I mean, that it feels like it's wraps, right? It feels like it's wraps. But we'll find out what happens this week against those respective teams. All we know is this is such a do-or-die month for the Metropolitans, so they need to win, and they need to win a lot. I think Alvarez should be lower in the lineup. He hits worse at the front, okay? I mean, he's batting 8th right now, so he can't get much lower than what he is. Personally, I think Alvarez, at best, is batting 5th or 6th. I think that's like perfect sweet spot for him. I think it makes so much sense. You have power forward. You have him consistently out there in the heart of the order. I love that. I'm at a 5.52. Nice. Awesome, James. Happy to hear that. Hope you're doing well, my man. And guys, we're 30 likes away from a hundo here. So if you haven't already, continue to smash those buttons. Thank you all so much in advance. As we take a look at the live chat here, we got out of, let's see, we got a bunch of votes, and this thing is catching up on me. But out of, roughly 300 votes, we have 45% say, yes, Alvarez is a game changer. 41% say, come back to me in a week or two. and 15% say no, Mets are cooked, bro. In response to the following poll, which is, with Alvarez back, have you gained confidence in the Mets making playoffs? If you haven't answered that poll already, please make sure you guys and gals do so. Thank you so much for that. Again, just thank you all so much for taking the time today. I appreciate that. Alvarez killed in the nice spot last year. He did, but again, though, you want his bat. You want his bat higher. I think you really want his bat higher, and I'll stand by that. I really do. I think he's just such a weapon for this Mets team that it would not do nearly enough justice by having bat ninth. I think you got to have him in the heart of the lineup, and I'll stand by that until proven otherwise, right? So we'll see what happens there, everybody. But Mets fans, I again want to thank you all so much for taking the time. Did they send Beatty down? Beatty was the 27th man, so I don't believe he's with the Mets anymore. I could be wrong, but he was the 27th man pick just for the London trip, so he should have been outrighted to Syracuse after, because the Mets don't have a roster spot for him right now. Let's see here. Priest probably voted 1,000 times for Mets being cooked. 100%. 100%. Priest on a plane, if you're watching this, we love you. All right, folks, that is going to do it for the live show. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time. Let's see. Austin with the final question here. Jalen Beeks from the Rockies. Haven't heard a creator mention it yet. Feels like a quality left-handed arm could help us make a push, obviously depending on next few weeks. Mr. Jalen Beeks, I would be lying to you if I said that I've been watching a lot of Jalen Beeks this season, mainly because, again, he's on the Rockies. But if I take a brief look here for you at his numbers per Fangraphs, I can give you a quick answer without doing a big deep dive. A bigger deep dive will come when I'm doing my typical trade rumor coverage, which we will be starting sooner than later. So be on the lookout for that, everybody. Going to talk about guys that could be out of here or will be out of here even. I'll even make the statement to say will be gone. And some guys that could be of interest to the Mets. I will preface, though, that when evaluating early targets for the Mets, it is very premature to do so. It is very difficult with the way that the Mets season has gone this far. I mean, right now, it's very hard to talk about buying when the emphasis is all on selling at the moment. But when we look at here, Mr. Beeks has a 4 ERA, a 3.87 expected ERA, 4.53 FIP. Don't like that. 4.62 expected FIP. Just under 8K per 9 and a 4 walks per 9. I see what you're saying in regards to Beeks as this being a lefty option for the Mets to consider here as a relief option. He has started a couple of games the past couple of years with the Tampa Bay Rays. I remember Beeks during his time with Tampa. That's why the name's so familiar. Yeah, I mean, look, he's a guy that, again, can be serviceable for the Mets here, won't cost you much. And those are that's the kind of reliever moves that I expect David Stearns to make, should he make any by the trade deadline. It'll be guys that kind of stand out in that manner in a way where they aren't going to, necessarily look like the sexiest names, but they're going to have the proper fit. And again, it only means so much the type of prior success or lack thereof that you had when you enter a bullpen, when you have the configuration, the mind that the Mets do with their pitching lab out of Port St. Lucie, 1, and 2, David Stearns, and how well he's been able to figure out a bullpen when it's healthy and when it's right. The problem for the Mets and their bullpen is that they have been unbelievably taxed, which has far more to do with their rotation than anything else. But Scott, appreciate it. Austin, thank you so much. Thank you guys for the kind words. Appreciate that. I will see you all for post-game coverage later tonight. Until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And this is your boy Wardy, as always.